It's 7 o'clock. I'll call the regular meeting of Shrewsbury Township Board of Supervisors to order. We'll begin by pledging to our flag. We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming here tonight. This meeting is being videoed and it'll be posted on our website. And because of that, in particular, I want to ask to identify ourselves because you can't see our name tags on the video. Sue?
Susan Fox.
Paul Solomon.
Cynthia Vivian.
Jeff Winnell.
Thank you. A few announcements. I want to recognize Pam Drake is here from the Daily Record.
York Dispatch.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, I think they're one and the same, aren't
At
they?
At this point, I think they might.
the same, York newspaper company owns both of them. Yeah.
Yes.
And Evan Goodell is here on behalf of Tim Bopp, who could not be here tonight. Welcome to our meeting. I'd like to congratulate the individuals who are here who were successful in the campaign for Township Supervisor. Congratulations. And also Al Burrows is here. It was competitive. So
Thank you.
welcome. Yeah. Ann's not here, but Art Rutledge, you all know Art. He's here. Thanks for coming in. Okay. One other very important announcement. Bill Cox is not here this evening, as many of you may know. Bill has had an ongoing problem with his lungs. His breathing capacity has been being reduced over the last number of months. And a day or two ago, he had an operation. He got a new set of lungs. He is don't know his exact condition. He's survived the operation, and we're hopeful he'll do very well and be back to us sometime in the future. But a lot of questions right now about his condition. Okay. First item on the agenda calls for a motion is the approval. Oh, one other thing I'm going to announce. The public has the right to record these meetings, but they must announce at the beginning of the meeting that they are doing so. And when you address the board, please come up and use the microphone. Give us your full name and address. You all have a copy of the minutes for the last meeting, the October meeting, and the budget meeting, which we have was held on the 28th. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from both of the meetings.
I just have one little correction that I just saw.
I want a motion first.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Discussion. Go ahead.
Just page 4, it says, Fox stated she was thinking about the whole situation, would like to send, it says, like to, the comments from, it's like to send, somebody left out the word send, because it doesn't make any sense the way it reads, that's all, it's no big deal.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So,
Just that one change, so I can see the minutes.
we'll amend the motion to include that change. I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Next item, the treasury report for October 2015.
Don't we have the points for the budget meeting?
We combined both.
Oh, we did? Okay, sorry.
The treasury report for October 2015. Entertain a motion to approve that report.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. You have a copy of the third quarter 2015 budget and actual report. What that report does is it states, it shows the comparison between the actual budget numbers and how we're doing up to date as far as spending or the revenue coming in. It's a very good report. It's very helpful to us to see how we're getting along with our budget. I do have a question on that matter. So actually, Todd, the report is very favorable, isn't it? I mean, do you want to summarize the report for the people here? How we're doing it?
Well, I have to go through, I don't have a grand total for all revenues and expenditures.
I
but
just had a
I can
question.
go through.
You want to ask a question, Sue?
Yeah, while you're looking, on 450.100, income-wise, you have 251 for the farm market as of September. I believe it's 350, plus another 25 came out. Didn't know where that number came from.
What is it, 450?
450.100, farmer's market.
Okay.
Says 251, should be 350, and then another 25 came in.
Well, when did you turn in the last receipts?
Yeah, but it's not 251. Oh, all those other, the 350 were in long ago. And then 25 came in late. I just
We'll
look at it, just look at
pull the
it.
detail, look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I did. I never lost it, so I didn't find it.
It was lost in aggregate.
On page 6, total expense gives a number, and the more important number is percent of the budget. So this is November, and our expenses are 56% of the budgeted amounts, which is very good. If it was 110%, then it was overspent, but you anything to say about that, Todd?
You're
On
looking
page
at
6,
the total?
total expense.
Okay, yeah, what you're looking at is the total expenses. Our budget for the year is 1.8 million, and through the third quarter, we spent just a fraction over 1 million, which is, like you said, about 56%. And then if you look at the income,
And the income is higher. It's
correct,
100.
the income, we're at 73%, so we're right on par for our projected income.
Right. Okay, so that's very good. I just want to point that out so it doesn't get lost. There's a lot of paper here.
Yeah, because our income through and this is just for the general fund, is 1,229,000 through the third quarter, and then our expenses are 1,037,000 as well.
We have a general fund where all our tax money and stuff goes into. We have other funds like fire fund and other
Sewer
funds,
fund.
and they're different. They're for very specific purposes. All right, moving on. Open public comment. We suggest you try to say within 5 minutes. We won't throw you out if you go over 5 minutes, but, and again, state your name and address. I don't see any hands up, all right. Moving on, ordinances and resolutions. In your pack, you have a floodplain ordinance prepared by our engineer, Jeff Shue, for C.S. Davidson. Todd, do you want to indicate what that does, how it affects us?
As some of you may be aware, FEMA put out new floodplain maps, and they take effect December 16th of this year. And FEMA is mandating that every municipality enact an ordinance adopting those new floodplain maps. If we don't do it by December 16th, the residents and property owners of Shrewsbury Township will not be able to buy flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program. The ordinance that you see, as you said, it's a template that was provided by FEMA. They went through and they edited it to suit the needs of Shrewsbury Township. We did forward it on to Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development because they're required to review it before it's passed for final adoption. I heard some municipalities are getting a very quick response, others are waiting weeks, so I don't know how soon we'll get a response back from them. So basically, everything's pretty common and similar to what we have in our current ordinance. Probably the most significant change is if there's appeals to a permit decision or a variance, It always went to the Board of Supervisors. Under the new federal regulations, it has to go to the zoning hearing board, because they tie it and link it really with zoning, even though it's a separate standalone ordinance.
But the floodplain is a zone.
Correct, it's basically a standalone zone. But then we also have the CEA critical environmental area, which in many cases exceeds the flood zone.
And I think our engineer indicated that the new floodplain ordinance in no way reduces the effectiveness or existing regulations dealing with floodplains.
That is correct, because if a local municipality has more stringent regulations, they take precedence over the floodplain regs.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Shirley?
What was the deadline date again?
December 16th. So what we would need tonight is authorization from the board to advertise for adoption at our December 17th.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make the motion to advertise.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, next item number 7, under subdivision land development. York Area Transportation Authority, exit 4, park and ride. It has to do with their subdivision plan. It's on Elm Drive. So do you want to introduce this matter to us?
Yeah. On Elm Drive, between Tawna and Forest Avenue, Chestnut Commerce is proposing to subdivide a piece of property for York Area Transportation Authority, also known as YATA. What the board's going to consider tonight are some waivers for the plan that they submitted. They are not considering any action on approving the plan. That will come a couple months down the road here. All they're doing, and I'll run through these waivers. But what they're doing is looking at their park and ride facility. This would be the area where the buses come in. This would be the area where people pick up. And of course, this would be all the parking. And then this would be overflow parking. And it's actually closer to Tawna Road than it is Forest Avenue.
The white area along the road, that's a stormwater management pond. What is that?
Correct, yes. That's correct, Phil? They were put stormwater?
I think that's really where they're handling like
Yeah.
stormwater absorption. The
Right.
pond is back where that circle is, I think.
Right here.
But it's a stormwater management facility.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're right. It'd be like a rain garden kind of thing.
So with that in mind, the waiver requests that are being requested are the public roadway improvements. And if they were required to make them, it would just be this very short section, and that would just be what's in front of their property. The perimeter
Would
buffer,
it be the carway, the pavement itself, or would it be the shoulder? Or?
it would be widening the shoulder. What do you mean? Because one of the other ones is curving.
Would it be like a turning lane, or would it,
No.
they would widen the carway?
If the board didn't approve the waiver,
They have
you would be,
to the new specs.
yeah, you would have to widen that road, that short segment.
That's a common thing.
I know, but how wide would the improvement be there? If we didn't waive it?
Hand.
Wish there was somebody here from the authority that would, help us with this.
The existing road is 30 foot wide. I think your collector is 36 feet, so it would be wide 3 foot on that side, I think.
We'll have to see if there are any dimensions here. Well, it's a 50-foot right-of-way.
The road's 30 foot, I know that. Yeah.
And that's probably that black line above it is where the waiver would be, what you want to waive is that.
Well, this is the current right-of-way from here to here,
Right.
and this should be the paved cartway
Okay.
currently.
And what's between the dotted line and the other solid line, what is that? Is that where they're going to widen?
There's no proposal to widen it, there's nothing on this plan.
Yeah, that's the waiver request.
The
I think
waiver-
that second
Well,
line,
I
that little sliver is the waiver request for the 6 feet, isn't it?
I just want to know if we didn't grant the waiver, how wide would it be?
I think it's that little sliver above, isn't it?
No,
Oh,
No?
No, that's additional,
right away,
right of way, because
Oh, okay.
it's required 60
right.
feet. So from here to here is 25 currently. With the subdivision, they're dedicating for that particular lot the additional 5 feet so that you have 30 from here to here. And then at the time that any development, land development or subdivision takes place on the other side of the road or adjacent properties, they'll be required to meet those same setback requirements or right-of-way requirements.
This is going to be if it's not already, it's going to be a collector road. What's the status of it now? Is it collector road or local road?
I'd have to pull, I do not know offhand, Paul.
But eventually, if it's not now, it'll be a collector road, so we have to make sure that when the bubble on the road is upgraded.
I believe it's designated as a collector road now.
Yeah.
Only because of the required right-of-way width.
That's why you have to get the additional right of way, because it is a collector road. So as part of this subdivision, you're gonna get the additional 10-foot right of way there, so that that piece there, you've got the full, right 60 foot.
Okay.
The balance of the land, that isn't the case now because it's not being submitted for subdivision. On a 60-foot right-of-way, the requirement is to go to the next size wider road, which I think is 36 foot wide. But this waiver request is just, since it's only this small section, it wouldn't make sense to widen it that additional 3 foot now. It would make more sense to do that if the rest of the property is developed. So Yava is asking that they don't have to widen this area at this time, and that's the waiver request. They are willing to give up the additional right-of-way, so it could be done in the future and to meet all the requirements in the future.
Would they pay for it in the future?
No, I think the developer that's going to develop the rest of the property will pay for it in the future. You know, if the rest of the property is developed, this is minimal amount of road that would have to be widened.
Isn't the base and the asphalt and so forth, when that road was it built as a collector? According to the specifications for the materials and all.
When it was built, I built the road,
I know you.
and when we built the road, it was built to your specifications exactly. And I don't think there's a difference between a collector specification and, you know, I don't think there's any difference between those two types of roads. It's only when you get into a private road, you know, or a small road that you have a difference in the amount of stone and pavement. So at the time this was built, which was probably 92 or 93, it was built to your then specs, which were pretty stringent. And then you guys have repaved it one time since then too, I believe, since 92. So the base is pretty well there. In fact, some of the base, there was some soft spots, and we had to put reinforcement fabric under the stone. So at that time, it was built to all your specifications and all your inspections, and the additional work that had to be done was done then.
You know, I'll say one thing. When the developer came in to the staff, the developer was there, the principals were there, and the engineers were there and so forth. Same way with the planning commission, I believe. Comes the board, we don't have that advantage. I would like the principal involved with this park and ride to be here. And so we get his side or his information directly, and we don't have to fish for information.
Just to put it into perspective, this is Elm here. Running down through here. Here's Forest, this is Elm coming down to Tawna. And it's in this general area here.
How quick will this, I know they're on a track of some kind to get this approved. How critical is it that we approve this tonight?
No, it's not critical. It's been through staff who recommended it on the planning commission. Planning commission reviewed it. and they're recommending to the board. And so that's why it's before you now.
Well, board have any thoughts on this?
I think for what they're doing, they're asking for standard waivers that we leave all the time.
I don't like
Because it's
that.
not a major subdivision at this point, it's just a parking lot. And they're asking to just have the waivers because they're not gonna do anything, they're not gonna improve the road now because they don't need to.
Yeah, they're the only ones that would be on that
That's a
section of the
question.
road.
Gene?
I'm looking at Elm Drive, and where do we stand with the completion of it to Windy Hill, as far as with, I know it's been in staff review, but how far along are we as far as like moving?
Well,
With this coming about, wouldn't it behoove us to like finish that road up?
Phil can tell you, he's overseeing a subdivision on Windy Hill Road that will give to the township the necessary land if we want to extend this to Windy Hill
That's what's
Road.
happening, Gene. All that's happening right now is we're doing a subdivision, and as part of that subdivision, we're dedicating the land for whatever might happen in the future, whether it becomes part of the playground or if it becomes a road right away. The only thing that's happening is the fact that through that subdivision, as part of that subdivision, that land's being dedicated to the township, and that's moving forward. And I hope to have a final plan done in 2 months. As far as this project's concerned, Paul, I'm very, very much involved in this project.
I realize
The reason that York came here was 2 years of me soliciting them to do this. So I've been involved in every meeting. I'm not sure exactly why there's a concern about this minimal widening or why you think you need to have their engineer here to discuss it. I know all the details and I can discuss it. It did come to your staff, it did come to the planning board. I'm not sure what other waivers are on the list there, but I think it's fair for this board to listen to those waiver requests. And if someone wants to make a motion to approve them, I think that could be done. Doesn't have to be done tonight. It's not the end of the world. We still have more work to do, but I don't know why it's an issue.
it's an issue because this is going to take a lot of heavy truck traffic and some other heavy traffic. And I just want to make sure that that road's going to hold up and be wide enough to meet all our requirements. And this is the first parcel, or part of a parcel, on this segment of Elm Drive that is before us. So if we can't, we have to hold everybody to the same questions, the same standards, so we have to start here. Now, has our engineer looked at this and is satisfied that the road meets specifications for a collector road?
Yes.
Again, going back to when the road was built, that was all taken into consideration because that's when there was going to be heavy traffic and truck traffic. It always did serve the industrial part that was truck traffic, and that was some of the reason why when we went in to do the base, put the base down, your inspector and your engineer at that time determined that the base might not be strong enough for some of that truck traffic, and we had to line the base with fabric before we put the stone down. So those things were done in '92 to make sure that this road would handle heavy traffic. It was designed always for heavy traffic. The reason this is taking the time it has is because they're working with federal grants. They have a very limited resources of funding, and they're not cutting corners. They've agreed to do everything that needs to be done, but to widen the road 3 foot isn't going to serve any purpose at this time, and it doesn't have anything to do with reinforcing the road base that's already there. So,
If this road needs, say that we continue to get development along and it doesn't hold up for whatever the reason, then who's responsible to upgrade or repair the road?
once it's been built and you've approved it and you've adopted it, of course, the township has to do that.
That's right.
And again, going back to '92 when it was initially built, that's why it was built the way it was and was updated and everything. The widening, the only requirement based right now is that widening. Yellow wouldn't have to upgrade the road surface as part of this plan. They would only have to meet the requirement to widen it, so whatever base is there on the rest of the road isn't part of your ordinance requirement for them to deal with this.
Well, I'm not going to, we'll move along, relax.
But if I can just add, that, if there's a major trucking company or something that comes in, it's going to put a lot of traffic and a lot of weight on that road, our ordinance does give us the authority to require them to upgrade the road to meet that additional traffic. I mean, we see that all the time.
I'll just say one on that, I'll just say one last thing, and then we'll move on. They're asking for 4 waivers. One for public road improvements, which we just kind of discussed. One for relaxation of the buffer requirements for the front of the property. One for parking lot landscape design, and one for curb, and one for establishing building envelope and woodland preservation. So I'm going to call for a motion and a second, and move on here.
I'll make a
In
motion.
the future, I would like to see the principal here, so we can ask him questions and get his perspective on this. Not somebody from the audience, although I don't feel been involved with this. And also, maybe we even need our engineer here if we're going to ask certain questions. Okay, so maybe it doesn't matter of record. So I'll entertain a motion. You want to, well, let's go down through these. What's the wish of the board? Put them all
I mean,
together?
all together, so what I was gonna make a motion is to approve all, the buffer, the parking lot, the curbs, the woodland preservation.
Okay, that's
And
fine.
I make that,
Very good.
motion,
Very
okay?
good.
So,
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
No.
aye.
Aye.
It passes. All right. Too much paper.
Manager is the next thing on the.
Ron, you're on. Andrew, report.
The only thing I just want to bring to your attention, Q&A last month about the Baron Matthews subdivision.
Yes.
There's been some activity on that. The borough has approved the planning module, so we're just waiting for the letter to come from the borough so we can resubmit it to DEP.
Would you let everybody know where that is and how many lots are involved?
It was a 2-lot subdivision on Constitution Avenue, and 1 lot already had an existing building. It's right there before, heading toward New Freedom will be on the right before Kirshner Road. And then the second lot is vacant and actually is for sale. It's been for sale for quite some time.
So they haven't been able to sell it because of the situation.
We advised them that it's going to be sold without the planning module approved, but to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that they've had anyone interested in it at this point in
They're
time.
not in the doors now.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Your report.
That's the only thing I had to add.
Okay, anything on your report you want to go over with this?
Now, if you have any questions, I will answer them. Again, the Marcellus Shale grant for Haintown Park. Again, we're waiting for the state to approve the budget. So we'll get that money.
And you say here that you'll give us a report prior to this meeting, and this is the report?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If you have any questions, give me a call or email me.
All right, that's fine. Thank you. You know whether they were able to spray the area, they were going to put the wildflowers in?
I don't know, Mikey did not let me know. I talked to him the next day, and he was going to try to get that done within the next week.
Hey, Paul, bringing that up, why are we doing this? Why are we killing the grass off and planting wildflowers, which is going to be a weed problem and also a rodent problem in an area that we've already had people complaining about rodents?
Oh, we have complained about rodents?
We have in the past.
Are you aware of any complaints about rodents?
About groundhogs was some time ago. I remember it.
You should remember that. You were here.
But I mean, how are you going to control the weeds and everything in these wildflowers?
Well, if you got the Hershey School and look at what they've done up there with their meadows, or they haven't had a lot of grass. This is a field that never was planted in grass. It was just bought it, and no work was ever done to it as far as improving the grass. There's no money invested in it. We're gonna have a trail that's gonna come up through the woods and go along Strawberry Road, and that's gonna come over along the pine trees and all on the east side, and it's gonna come back to the new parking lot. And, there'll be a 4-acre infield there.
That'll be weed infested.
It's already weed infested.
Well, I thought they mow it now, though.
I know, but I mean, there's.
Well, mowing's a whole lot better than weed infested.
Have you ever dealt with meadows?
Yes, Paul, I haven't.
He's a farmer, and that's a dumb question. Boy,
I mean, Paul, it's just like, you know,
Cynthia, are you okay?
I'm fine, I just can't
I
believe the
just-
question was
I-
answered.
you know, just-
You have a meadow on your farm.
Paul, I'm just very surprised because you're gonna put this wildflowers in. Basically, you're taking that ground out of use. Right now, it's in grass. It can be utilized somehow or another. And to me, the grass is gonna look better than what the weed bed's gonna look like. It's gonna turn into a weed bed.
You were here last meeting and you didn't say anything.
I was not here at the last meeting when this was discussed. I found out about it through minutes.
Apologize.
And that's what I'm upset about, is, you know, you never even told me about, discussed this with me in any way,
Well, you weren't here.
but you didn't, I'm sure, what I'm saying is you could have given me a call and talked to me like you would any other time on some things. But that, there again, you ain't real good at that either. But it's what I'm saying
You know,
is,
you're getting out of order. I don't mind your opinion, but don't degrade me in the process. all
I'm
right?
not, I'm just making,
Go ahead, go ahead.
I didn't appreciate some of the comments you made about me. But anyhow, I guess,
All right, go ahead. Let's go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want, before you do this, just think about it again, because I'm telling you, you're gonna have a lot of weed problems, you're gonna have thistle problems and everything else. And because you've got, right now, with adding grass, you can control your weeds, you're mowing it daily, you're mowing on a regular basis, you can keep weeds under control. You put the wildflowers in, at that point, now you got no means of spraying, no means of control, and it's gonna grow up, and it's gonna be overbearing appearance-wise, just like we had out front here. And that's just my opinion, and I'm stating it.
No,
And another question, now we're on this about
Go ahead.
all this, is what's happening with the Walmart hill along 851. I remember you working on that, and we was planting another flower, we planted another species, we were supposed to be continuing, going up further with that. What's happened with that?
Todd is working on it.
Yeah, that's actually the developer, Walmart, well, Shrewsbury
Well, I just-
Commons is actually doing the work. And if you've taken notice, they planted the lower half year and a half ago.
1/3.
2 years ago, probably.
About 2
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, it's about a third, 2/3 of it. I don't think it's quite half, but anyway, they wanted to do that on the bottom to see how effective it would be. And they did come in about 2 weeks ago and they did weeding of the invasive plants. I think it, you know, as it grows and matures and establishes, I think it's going to be better than what's.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was wondering, well, how come we haven't been moving with it? Because it does look better on
Yeah,
the bottom.
their
but-
plan is to continue now,
But
but
see, I didn't know it was
But they're
gonna
looking
be
to-
waiting this long.
they're looking to do it probably in the spring, an additional third, let that get established. So it'll probably be another year and a half or 2 years and then do the final.
I've been talking with Todd about this.
Well, I haven't heard anything from anybody, that's why I asked.
So you're right, it hasn't been, the board hasn't been not kept up to date on this. No, it's just a matter of the way it happened. But he is in touch with the shopping center. They weeded the first third, they're gonna plant the next third, apparently next year. That's where we are.
Or maybe just shoot an email when you get something like that, just.
I was talking to
One at
Chris.
a time.
Well, it's one of those things, Shrewsbury Commons has no regulatory requirement to do what they're doing. What they're doing is voluntary.
And I think they want to get it established and make sure that worked before they spend any more money.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
why they're doing
Right.
what they're doing.
We haven't been on about it yet.
Well, I just wondered, because I hadn't heard anything, that's all.
It's been slow. And I'm not
But
talking to you.
but on the park thing, like I said,
Okay?
I just don't think it's something we should be doing. I don't think we should do it.
Now,
I think-
Jeff, you have a meadow on your farm, but it's a natural meadow.
And it doesn't look as nice as what it would look if I could have it in green grass. I'll be honest with you, I'm not crazy over it, but there ain't, it's too wet for me, it's a wetland, it's not,
Yeah, I understand, so
it's a wetland, it's not what you're talking, it's a wetland,
No,
I physically can't go in.
It was in pasture. Yes.
I apologize, because I haven't been to quite a few meetings this year, and I just read about this. Don't you have
Well,
enough?
no,
Oh, Shirley, am I
please
supposed
come up, if you're gonna,
Paul, I had a knee replacement.
all right,
It's hard for
well,
me.
Shirley
to-
Simpson, go ahead.
Don't you have a noxious weed ordinance? I mean, aren't you required to, certain times, aren't you
We have,
aggravating that? I don't mean to sound naive, but I'm kind of horticulturalist myself, and I try to keep the weeds out of my yard, and when you get wildflowers, you can't control it. Don't you violate your own ordinance?
no. In other words, we have an ordinance, if grass in a lawn gets over 9 inches, then it has to be mowed. There's a noxious weed ordinance, I guess the state has that, more so than we do. We don't have a noxious weed ordinance per
Oh, is it the
se.
state? I didn't, I
State
just know
has
you're
one.
always mowing stuff.
And, but that's how that works. But along streams and other places, if it's an agricultural use, it can be higher and so forth. So it's not just a simple matter, you can't go above 9 inches. You have a question?
Yeah, my name is Bonnie Raindrop, and I'm a beekeeper in the area. And concerning the issue of planting wildflowers, I would just like to share that the pollinators in these areas are being decimated. We're losing between 30 and 60% of our pollinators. In our area alone, we lost 60% of the managed pollinators. A big part of this is because we have no forage for them. And agriculture winds up, poisoning a lot of the forage that bees used to use. And it doesn't just affect bees, it affects over 400 species of wild pollinators that are pollinating our food, and it affects bees and butterflies as well. So I think I just want to amplify that there is a real need right now. In fact, the White House Task Force on Pollinators is putting plans in place in all the states to try to put more forage in. So I think this would be consistent with the trend of trying to alleviate the deaths of pollinators by planting wildflowers. So I would appreciate, movement in that direction.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. You say this, we're going to put a trail in any case. You're okay with the trail?
Well, I have no problem with the trail.
Right now,
I just think,
Okay, go ahead.
one of the things is, instead of taking 3.5 acres, why don't you take a half acre or a quarter acre and see what it fills in like before you go destroying the whole thing.
We aren't destroying anything, we're actually improving it. But if the majority of the board doesn't want to have a wildlife meadow as an infield to this trail, and just keep mowing that grass, and there's a cost of mowing grass, by the way. We keep mowing that, and that grass, those fields aren't up to use for anything. They're not being used at all, it's just mow, and that's it. It's not, we have plain fields here, it's not being used for anything. So, what I'll do in all fairness, Jeff.
Well, like I said,
I mean,
why don't you try just putting a smaller patch in instead of taking 3.5 acres and see what it does truly look like when it's done. I mean, to take 3.5 acres and do that and then have it,
hey, Jeff,
I
understand your concern, okay? Let me say this. You're a farmer, you know all about agriculture, and I appreciate that very much. But if we spray that area this fall, and again, maybe next spring, and kill all the vegetation, then we can use a no-till planter and plant it. I mean, it's not that big a deal.
you will have your weeds coming in with your flowers and everything, and you got nothing you can go back in there and spray.
Well, no, that's not, what you do is you take a knapsack sprayer, you have an area, and this one usually grows in one area or the other. It grows as an island, right, in the field, could be big or small. You go in there and you spot spray that with a knapsack sprayer, so you can spray. And I've been through this a lot, I've planted it myself, but if this board in its wisdom does not want us to do it, and have this field, which has weeds in it, by the way, it's mowed, it looks better when it's mowed. If this board doesn't want it, shame on us, but we work that, so if somebody wants to make a motion not to do it,
I'll make a motion to do it, but to reduce it to a half acre to see what
it's
happens.
just- if you bring in a piece of equipment to do it, you know, it doesn't cost that much more, so if it doesn't work, we just take out the whole thing. But we aren't putting any fertilizer down, you know.
Okay, whatever, just do whatever you want then, Paul, I'll just drop it.
No, I mean,
I'll just drop it.
I think
I'm sorry.
Jeff has a good point. We allowed Walmart to do this and start out small to see what it was gonna look like, and now we're gonna, I think it's a great idea. Instead of doing all, we're not, and I agree, instead of taking up that much land, do a small section of it and see how it works like Walmart. If it looks great, it works, so what? Then bring back the piece of equipment, you do what you have to, and do the whole thing. I mean, if it works, it works, but why
Why
destroy that
wouldn't you
whole?
just,
how do you-
why wouldn't you just go, I'm not into Roundup, I hate Roundup. But why don't you just go in and try it? And the worst that can happen is you go back and you party on with more Roundup, you take it out and you put grass back in. I don't know, it's, you could look at it
Just do a
both
small
ways.
area, I mean, that way we
No,
don't put grass back in a small area.
If you
It makes
can't with
sense what he
equipment, you
says.
can't
If
do
you
small.
bring in a
Okay.
big no-till cedar, you know, bring up the piece, go in and just do a little patch, do it that way, but.
Absolutely, you can do it that way.
uh,
So I'll second Jeff's motion that, you know, to do whatever size section that you want to see, I'm okay with that, and let's start there and go from there.
What
So
was your
I'll-
motion, Jeff?
A half acre or so.
That's fine. I'll second that half acre.
Okay, I'll call for the vote.
No.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Stand still. Okay.
Well, I understand how you feel, and you know, and if you just, we'll try to work something out that, I mean, I think we should do the whole thing. And see, I'm going out over the limb, so you're gonna be over there saying, well, look, we have some weeds, so you're gonna come back in and yell at me, but that's okay.
I will be watching it,
I know,
trust me.
I know, okay, we'll try to do it right. We'll try to make the project, okay.
I can tell you what's gonna happen, Paul, I've seen it all too often.
In front of our township building, how long
That's
it looked like that.
exactly.
And it was a cesspool out there with all the weeds and it backed up all that water. Thank God we didn't have the West Nile virus.
Okay, I'm gonna move on.
Of course.
See, a weed is a plant out of place. That's the formal definition for a
It was a
weed.
cluttered mess that it was all backed up with water. It was a cesspool out there, which was standard. But let's try to get it in another area, Paul.
Let's move on. We need I mean, this job is not easy. Anyway, moving on. Todd, your report's complete. Anything else? Sanitary sewer, Todd.
I don't have anything to report new from last month, other than Mr. Amsbacher is still trying to find a buyer for his home at 12077 Baltimore Street. And again, he's willing to sell it for the amount of the lease. So,
Be aware of that, if you're a speculator. Anyway, evidence here, Tim, Evan, do you have anything under the solicitor's report?
I do not have anything new to report unless someone has questions for me.
What's your name?
Evan Beagle.
Okay, zoning officer report, you have that in your pack. And it's straightforward. Are there any comments or questions? All right. Maintenance report is also in your pack. It's very clear. Any comments on that? Engineer and Planning Commission, any comments on those reports? All right, move on. Supervisor, comments? Sue, we'll start with you.
I just, did you mail the check to the animal rescue, the reason you were gonna mail it?
No, it's on the agenda later to be approved by the board. Under the 2015 contributions.
Okay. Oh, that's in, you're gonna do all those at the same time?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
all listed individually.
Okay. You're just gonna do one across the board?
Excellent.
Yeah, good. I was just, that's what I was wondering.
That's it. Anything else?
No,
Okay. I have I want to give this thought, it's for information only. An article in the Bay Journal, Prince George's County makes 3 DC area bans on coal tar sealants. People put sealants on their driveway, their asphalt driveways, and apparently there's a lot of toxics in that. And sometimes when it rains real hard after they apply it, you see a plume of debris, tar coming down into the storm drain system of your stream. So I'm not saying we should regulate it, but I do say we should maybe put something in the newsletter, just a little article in there, remind people that there are some risks involved with that. Okay? Any comments on that? And then there's I think you may have gotten this, so it's from the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. It's about grants.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the same grant program that we have for Windy Hill and Winchester Park.
I thought you were going to talk about that, but there it is. And finally, there's an article in the May Journal about Somerset County, Maryland considers tighter zoning regulations for poultry houses. And we've been discussing regulations dealing with health regulations on poultry houses, these factory farms. And I'm just going to give you this article, and you can tie it in with we have a draft ordinance that's been prepared regarding health concerns regarding factory farms, particularly poultry houses. And that's just, we haven't taken any action on it.
Correct.
Where are we on that now?
Well, we had the comment from Tim last month.
Yeah, we did.
And it was discussed, and the board didn't take
And
any
then
other action at that
And
point.
not forwarded.
Yeah, you forwarded on, I don't know who you forwarded on to, but
No,
then
then
we
I
got a
forwarded,
response.
I forwarded the response back to you.
Yeah, that went out to all the board.
So then, can you scan those and just pass them on to us so we know what
Sure.
he's talking about?
Now, what our attorney said, what Tim Buff said was that, you have to tread lightly on this because there's risk involved because of the Right to Farm Act. Whereas you're not supposed to do anything that would discourage or hamper agricultural uses. So this has to be handled very carefully if you go through it at all, because language has to be just right. But it can be done, and it has been done, and the courts have upheld it.
Yes, the Supreme Court of
So-
Illinois State. But also, you can impose fees that are different. And when I talked to Susan Buckham on the phone, I just came through, I just found a note in my briefcase.
Susan Buckman is who?
From the Attorney General's office in charge of acre. And I came across some notes the other day in my briefcase from her. And you can charge fees, which is what this thing does. And so you just have to try it and see what happens. It's a proactive approach.
I mean, Jeff has some concerns about it, Jeff, say them again.
I'm against it. I have not seen everything, I haven't reviewed everything, but I'm against it. I'm against it, because, I mean, we tout ourselves as being an agricultural township, and we seem to want to put ordinances in that want to prohibit it.
Now,
Or make life miserable for the operator.
Jeff,
Make life miserable for the operator and make them fall under more stringent.
what have you ever done to discourage farming in this township?
Not everybody is a horse farmer or, a green farmer, you got some other types of farmers out there. I mean, it's not just green anymore, and,
It's very diversified. But what have you ever done as a board to discourage farming in this township?
well, it just seems like
You made a
it's getting
statement.
bad more and more all the time.
You made the statement that like we have a history of discouraging farming.
Well, we changed things for us, the sludge ordinance, which is used for fertilizer and so forth. Like I said, I believe there's state guidelines and everything, and as long as everybody's by the state guidelines, I don't feel we need to be more restrictive than the state.
I understand. I called upon you because I know you feel strongly about this. That's why I want you to express your opinion. This board has never done anything to discourage or hamper agriculture in Shrewsbury Township. In fact, we have encouraged it. It's our #1 industry. We've done everything we can to.
Well, in some of the zoning ordinances, we've increased some of the footages and so forth by as far as setbacks and everything for certain types of buildings, we've increased that over time. That's minor. I mean, it can be dealt with, but it's that type of thing that is, not.
Would you explain that to me again? What have you done?
Some of the setbacks have been increased on CAFOs and so forth.
They have. What we've done in our ordinance, we've said the state, whatever the regulation the state has is what will follow here, and the state is very favorable in dealing with CAFOs. What we have done, though, is we've allowed farmers to transfer their rice from the agricultural district into the urban area, suburban area, and when they sell one, the developer gets two, so we increase the value of them. We've done a lot of things to improve agriculture, so I don't agree with your opinion on that at all, and you can't back it up. All right, moving on. Old business.
Okay, well,
Todd,
excuse me,
go ahead.
supervisor comments. So you didn't ask,
Oh, you-
yes, thank you.
We're still on that. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
go ahead.
Thank you, please don't interrupt me.
No, wait a minute. Don't ever say don't. If you're out of order, I'm
I'm
gonna.
not out of order.
No,
Anything that you don't like seems to be out of order
You-
for you, Mr.
No, you
Solomon.
said don't interrupt you. Well, I can't promise you that.
I
You
know.
have every right to speak.
So long as I praise you and your buddies, it's okay. Other than that, you.
I don't have any bias.
Yeah, you do. So we're ready, get that ready. Okay, I was reading the minutes and noticed some of the minutes were moved regarding our executive session that I was here in August for. After doing some research with the township and also doing a right-to-know request, for the past 10 to 12 years, the board has always announced we were having an executive session that was possible litigation, and this board has always named the peoples and named names of the people that were involved with possible litigation. We can't get into details about it, but this board has always announced that. With the exception of personnel issues to protect our staff, those are the only names that are not given. I want the minutes to reflect that two people, we had a discussion in an August executive session. One was Fox Van Voorhees subdivision, and the other one was possible litigation from Earl Shuckman. Tim Buck, our solicitor, sent out a memo, and it was strictly for the board members and to our manager, for us to review and discuss about these possible litigations by these two individuals. Somehow or another, like I said, it was only the board members and our manager, this memo made it to the hands of Earl Shuckman's attorney. So now Earl Shuckman's attorney knows exactly the direction that this board was going to take in possible litigation. Outrageous, absolutely outrageous that one or more of these board members would actually hand that over to somebody that's possibly suing this township. As to date, I went over some of the bills. As to date, Earl Shuckman right now has cost the township almost $4,500 for this litigation.
Your accusations are what cost the township money,
Don't
dear.
interrupt us. You have a
I am
chance-
interrupting.
You have a chance to
Yes.
talk.
Go ahead.
The Fox Van Voorhees has cost us almost $2,000.
That was again your
Sue.
issue.
The taxpayers have a right to know the money that's being spent and squandered over these lawsuits. But I want the public to know, and the minutes to state that, I even mentioned in the executive session to the solicitor, I was in fear of discussing this because one of the board members is a business partner with one of the people that are suing this township. And he said we shouldn't fear it at all because it would never leave this, our executive session, and which it did. That memo made it to Earl Shuckman's attorney. So just want to make sure that this is good news, that people know what's going on in this township. Outrageous. Thank you.
Sue, you have equal time.
I can't comment on ridiculous morons. I mean, it's
Now,
just that simple.
Sue, we don't,
Well, it's
it's out of
just
order.
basic.
Don't do that.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
don't do that. All right. Any other comments?
Constant harassment.
Okay, we're going to old business. Todd, you want to do A, B, and C?
Sure.
Yeah.
Last month, we had a visitor from down on Windy Hill Road, and particularly regarding 2026 Windy Hill. It had to do with a covered culvert which had a dry stone wall and a concrete slab over top of it. Over time, of course, the dry stacked stones have collapsed, causing some sinkholes in the lawn. But more importantly, it's causing the water to back up. It gets restricted when there's high flows, which is naturally when you have significant rains, it's going to flood, but it's causing more serious flooding than what it has in the past. So after the last board meeting, there was a letter written and mailed to the current owner. It went into foreclosure, so the bank currently owns that property. They're located out in Oklahoma, so we did send a letter. Also copied the letter to the law firm that handled the settlement. Of course, as I expected, they handled just foreclosures, and they notified us that they're no longer involved in that property. I did have a conversation with the listing real estate agent and also sent him a copy of the letter. And he advised me that he would forward it on to his client, the bank. I did verify, I know the property owner at the last board meeting indicated that he thought that culvert may be within the railroad right-of-way. On the far western end of that culvert, there's about 2 feet that's in the railroad, but it quickly, because of the curve, it quickly leaves that culvert out of the right-of-way. And then the last thing I did is I did call DEP. I asked some questions, and based on their responses, I did file a formal complaint. So they will be going out to do an inspection of the property, and under, I think it's their Title 105, I believe it is, you are required to maintain those water courses and those structures. So if they don't do it in advance, DEP will more than likely direct them that they do need to make the repairs.
To that structure.
Yes. Now, I did have a phone call. Actually, I had a right-to-know request from a potential buyer yesterday looking for a copy of the original subdivision plan. And he happens to be a contractor, and I explained to him what was going on. He told me that he did talk to the realtor today, and the realtor told him, now this is secondhand, I can't confirm it, but this is coming from the potential buyer. He relayed to me that the realtor indicated he was contacted by the owner of the bank and was directed to contact a local contractor to get a price. But the original subdivision plan was from 1979, and it does show that concrete slab back in 79 already.
And I delivered that letter that you wrote, that email that you sent me to Chip, the neighbor across the road.
Okay.
And he was very pleased.
So,
Okay. All right, now, the situation in Grand Rock,
yeah.
you want to give your background on that?
Yeah, again, we had a visitor last month who lives just outside of Glen Rock Borough. He's on the corner of Glenview Road and Pine Street. Pretty steep hill, he has a pretty steep driveway going down into his home. And when there's heavy rains, he's been there, I think, about 19 years, but he indicated the last 3 years he's been having more problems with stormwater drainage. And it coming down his driveway, and he does have a little bit of a drain to capture what comes off of his driveway, but what's coming off the street, certainly can't handle that. So we were out, we looked at it, we actually had our engineer out since our last meeting, and we walked the property. Mr. Chandler was there, and we actually met with him and talked to him. And we believe, and he did say there was kind of a rolled curb at the intersection of Pine Street and Glenview Road. So we pulled some of that asphalt off that rolled curb to get it to go down Pine and then down Ronald Street. And Mr. Chandler indicated that did seem to help a little. So actually yesterday, Mike went out and he pulled a good bit more off. So we're going to just monitor it and keep in touch with Mr. Chandler, and I spoke to him on the telephone tonight, so.
You should be very well satisfied with your effort.
Yeah.
And it's good to do it by degree, so we can monitor it.
Right, because, if it becomes a problem on Ronald Street, we'll have to see if we can correct that, or worst case scenario, we can put that rolled curb back and then take another approach with
Thank you for that.
Chandler.
Sale of EDUs to Stone Beach Business Park.
Yeah, I gave you a copy of the letter. If you remember, back several months ago, we had a request for 15 EDUs from Stewart Properties.
10.
Yeah,
15 originally,
we gave 10.
And the board approved to sell them 10 for a potential client that would be moving into the property. In the meantime, I informed the borough that we had approved this, and I got an email that the borough sewer authority wanted to approve it as well. So make a long story short, it went to Shrewsbury Borough Authority. They denied the transfer. But that's probably a story for another day. But more importantly, I did receive a letter from Stewart Properties advising us that, first of all, the action by Shrewsbury Borough Authority, and secondly, that their tenant, other things didn't work out, so that deal fell through. So,
It was at some sort of medical facility.
yes.
What was the exact nature of it?
My understanding, it was something with dialysis, is what I understood.
Well, I mean, it was for a good use, and it was good revenue for the township, $10,000 at EDU, but can you talk to somebody in the borough to find out why? So next time we want to be advised as to what they're concerned about?
Yeah, I will, because I don't understand that part of it simply because the EDUs was sold to Shrewsbury Township, so they're already allocated to Shrewsbury Borough's system and to pass through their system.
And this is part of their system.
And this is part of their system, so I can certainly check.
Could you advise us maybe next month,
Sure.
possibly? Okay, new business. York Water Company, Strawberry Field, this is just an announcement.
Yeah, we received a notice the same as all the residents in Strawberry Fields. York Water Company is going to be holding a meeting here in this room on Thursday, November 12th at 6 o'clock, and they've invited all the residents and property owners of Strawberry Fields. My understanding is they're just going to gauge the interest of those property owners if they're looking for public water.
Trash exemption request, or moving it forward.
You know, the property is vacant.
What's your recommendation? It's
It
vacant.
is vacant, so.
It's vacant, I know it is. The man died and his wife moved.
I'll entertain a motion to
I'll make a
either
motion.
approve or deny the request.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Request.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number C under 11, community contributions and fire tax divisions. Every year we give money to local fire companies. Todd, you want to tell everybody what those amounts were?
Yeah, the community contributions, that's an annual budget item. Glenrock Ambulance, $20,000. New Freedom, also known as Road Ambulance, is $35,000. Animal Rescue, $1,500. Southern York County Library, $10,000. Huffnagel Public Library in Glen Rock, $1,500. York County Rail Trail Authority, $500. South Central York County Senior Center, $2,500. And Southern Community Services, $700.
So we do help local libraries and fire departments and all that. It's part of our responsibility.
Would you like me to, do you want to do the fair tax distribution in the same motion? If you do, I'll.
Yes, let's do the same motion. I think I'll work.
The 2015 fire tax distribution, which goes equally to the 3 fire departments that serve Shrewsbury Township and is on your real estate tax bill. The 2015 distribution amount is $63,059.03. Prior to this increase, it was somewhere at around 47,000. What the board started doing, I believe it was in 2011, Glen Rock Borough and Shrewsbury Borough invoice Shrewsbury Township for the fire company workers' compensation insurance. So that gets deducted out of that 63,000, and then the balance goes directly to the fire department. So Rose Fire Company, also known as New Freedom, will be getting the $63,059. Shrewsbury Fire Company will be receiving $58,475, and Glen Rock Hills and Ladder will be receiving $57,755. So just looking for a motion to authorize the release of these funds.
So moved. For a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are you going to vote?
No,
Well, obviously I can't when I wasn't here.
all right. We're I'm always in the middle here. Anyway, my insurance policy doesn't cover this. All right. We're going to advertise we had a budget meeting, public meeting on the 28th of October. We provided our comments to Todd. I think there's one change that you made in that draft budget.
Yeah, actually, there's two things I want to follow up from that meeting. There's one change I made since that time. If you recall, we were showing that $14,855 from Siteslin Phase 3, also known as District 2. That's all coming into the general fund, and then we were showing that same amount going to the sewer fund, which gets applied to that general obligation there.
Right.
I removed that from the 2016 budget because we had a property owner that paid in full, plus with the quarterly payments, I could actually take care of that in 2015, so that's already done.
Good, all right.
And the other thing is, we had a question on the local services tax, which if you recall was up around $100,000 2 prior years. That's the LST, the $52 for each employee. I did make an inquiry to York Adams Tax Bureau to see if there was some reason that they could find as to why that tax is down. Because we were up around $77,000, $78,000, then we jumped up into the high $900,000 or $90,000 range. One year was just shy of $100,000. And then this year it looks like we're on target to be right around $80,000. And I'm quite surprised they didn't tell us about this before, but the response I received from the director in there in October of last year, they were notified by Kiner Trucking that the majority of their employees were being allocated to Shrewsbury Township instead of West Manchester Township. So we were receiving Kiner Trucking for 2 years. And they corrected that for 2015.
We don't have to refund that, apparently.
Apparently not, because, and it says about Kiner corrected it. So I don't know if it was an error on their part, but West Manchester hasn't asked for it back, and it's been a year, and neither has York Adams Tax Bureau. So we are going to be in the low 80s.
Okay. That's
There are two things as follow-ups.
If anybody's conscience is bothered, then we can, I don't think that's the case here. All right, so we need a motion to approve the,
Well, to authorize it to be advertised in public inspection.
So moved.
well, that's been, I'll make a motion to advertise the $200,000 budget to advertise to be adopted in December. You want to second that, Jeff?
What's this again now? Would you overrode my motion?
I'll just second your motion. I'll just try to expand a little bit, okay? I'm seconding your motion. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Correspondence, anything you want to bring up, Todd? Closing public comment? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. Wayne Ryan at 215 Prospect Circle. I have a question for the board. Did they consider, when you were looking at budget for 2016, discussion of the fire hydrant tax ordinance that you passed last year?
I know that.
And
It was discussed and
It was discussed and
consensus was
not
Okay.
on my end.
But go ahead.
I'd just like to say that our community has been very vocal in our opposition to this. As you know, I've spoken before about this issue.
Yes.
And not our community alone, but other communities like us feel that the ordinance is not fair in the way it is written. And so, again, I'd just like to bring it up, that we're very unhappy about it. We will continue to bring it up, and we hope to see change in the future in this regard.
What change do you want to see?
We want it to go back into the general fund as it was 1 year ago.
You want the general public to pay?
We want all residents, taxpayers, to pay a fair share of the hydrant tax.
What's the fair share for farmers that not the Glen off there that never used the fire hydrant.
I'm glad you brought that up, Paul. I had an opportunity
I'm not,
I had an opportunity during a recent visit with a fire, they had an open house with my grandchildren. And I was able to ride in the fire truck and ask some very pertinent questions about that. I did. And it was very interesting. I asked about ponds, if they could hook up to a pond. And they said they were reluctant to hook up to ponds because when they did, they picked up a lot of trash and so forth. And then when the trucks came back to the firehouse, they had to be thoroughly cleaned because they could no longer hook up to freshwater hydrant once they hooked up to a pond. So they are reluctant to even use ponds. They do use them on occasion, but most times they try to avoid using ponds.
I understand.
And they use, when the fire truck hooks up to the fire hydrant, they fill up the tanker trucks. And so they try to disperse a fire and kill a fire by that means. I also asked how far they could pump, which I found was very interesting because we heard discussion during that last year of the discussion, they could pump as far as 2,000 feet. Well, it turns out they can pump as far as a mile. What they do is they can trucks together and they go from one tanker to another. So they can pump effectively for as far as.
How often have they done this?
The day I was talking, he said they had a fire in Glenrock that they had done just that, which I found interesting.
In the borough of Glenrock?
Yes.
And they had to go a mile?
They went a mile, hooking trucks together. It was amazing to me. So there were, again, as I have presented before, I think most of the residents, even farmers, benefit from the use of the fire equipment, that it be only fair that the entire. That's my opinion.
I know, and we appreciate hearing from you, really, but it's a matter of portion. What I don't understand is that, I know somebody, what I don't understand is, you get put in a different classification if you have a fire hydrant in your neighborhood. Okay? And people that live outside developers, they don't have that. They have to pay full.
If you're talking about the insurance discount that's brought up, is that what you?
It's not called a discount, it's called, you put in a different classification. It's the same thing.
It is, I will grant you, there is some discount, but it's very minuscule per unit owner, very minuscule compared to.
I was going to understand everyone's information. Mr. Tony, anyway,
I'm expressing.
The average cost to a homeowner that has to pay this tax is probably between $20 and $25.
I understand.
Okay?
I'm presenting this on the fairness principle as I did before.
Okay, but we respond to all voters. I mean, I live in a rural area, but that doesn't cloud my judgment. But fairness, you think that people that aren't near a fire hydrant, they shouldn't have to pay the tax. Speaking of fairness, that's where fairness would go, it seems to me.
Well, since you brought that up, in fairness, the way the state ordinance reads, that you should be taxing all properties within the 780 feet, not just homeowners. It says whether they are tax exempt or not. And you haven't, your ordinance doesn't do that.
That's a good point. That can be changed. I mean, it should be changed.
Then that should be
This
changed.
board voted to not tax the tax exempt people.
That's correct.
And I'm saying,
So I'm saying the fairness principle only affects, you only targeted those
okay,
homeowners.
that can be changed. And, so I'm willing to make necessary changes to make it as fair as possible, but I believe that people that use the service are the ones who should pay for it.
And I just pointed out to you that through my investigation, brief as it was, that all property owners, including farmers, benefit from fire trucks coming to their home to put out a fire, carrying water from a fire hydrant. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
I have a quick question. Who
Sure.
did you speak with at Glenrock?
It was one of the supervisors. It wasn't Glenrock. It was the Shrewsbury.
Oh, that was Glenrock Borough, but it was Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury Borough.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
They did just have their open house.
Yes, they did. And I rode with my grandchildren, it was great. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate you coming in. I mean, you have given us a lot of thought, and we're always open to changing things within reason. So don't give up on us.
Okay,
We have a good board coming in next year, and I'm sure it'll be revisited.
I hope so.
One of those members live in that development, I'm sure we'll be revisiting.
It should be. And I live out in the farm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sue's one of the people that was very active in encouraging this ordinance.
Well, you've got a guy up on Seislin Road who lives 780 from a hydrant. He's paying a tax on his property where he has well and septic, and on a line across the street. And there's no way that a fire hose can get through the thick woods to go all the way to his house, but he has to pay the tax just because he's within the feet.
I just love it. I love
It's
it,
just
Sue.
really weird.
You take
It's
one
just-
extreme example.
No.
You
It's
take
just-
one absurd extreme example and say, that's it, case over.
In January, you guys just rehash it and do what you feel like
We
doing.
welcome to come in and sit back here and,
No, it's just fine. I have a fire pond, by the way.
all right. We're going for the last item, adjourn. Any public comment? Besides that, gentleman? Adjourn into executive session for those who will be attending that. So we're going to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.